Join Jim Walker and Digby Beacham on the Sports Daily each weekday morning from 5:30.
This Thursday morning on the Sports Daily, it's just gone 10 minutes past 7 o'clock, and it is a great pleasure to have in the studio with us this morning Bob Peters, who, of course, alongside Sandra last year, along with Grant and Alana Williams and William Pike and Patrick Carberry, were able to clean sweep the Group 1s in the last TABtouch Masters. We've got him in the studio to look ahead to Melbourne this weekend and the upcoming months, as well as our Perth Carnival that is on the horizon. Bob, a very good morning to you, and thanks for joining us in the studio.
Good morning.
Thanks for your time, Bob. Great to have a chat to you on this Thursday morning. First things first, how are the Eastern States runners ahead of this big card there at Flemington on the weekend?
Well, as far as I know, they're all well. I've spoken to Danny this morning, and everything's under control.
Western Empire, I think he's a horse who is going around in the Mackay Diva along with Regal Power. He's come up with Barrier 5, Regal Power, Barrier 3. First things first, Western Empire's first up run. What did you make of it?
I was a bit disappointed. Danny was quite keen on the horse for the race and thought that he could win, and obviously, to me, he didn't perform as well as what I would have liked. So I asked Danny to make a change of plans, and that's why he's racing again this week. He was going to keep him for a bit later on and not race him too much, but I thought that run, seeing as he was sort of prepped right up for it to win, was disappointing.
Did Danny share your views? Was he a little bit underwhelmed?
Yes, he was. Yes, he wasn't happy.
Okay.
Bob, pre that race, we spoke to you on the program, and you were quite confident going into the race, or certainly as confident as we've heard you sound. So do you go in now for the rest of the campaign just a little bit reserved, or certainly for this Saturday a little bit reserved?
Oh, definitely. This Saturday will tell us a lot as to where we are with the horse. They don't all come back every campaign. He had a great campaign last time, and just hopefully he can do something this week. I think the track at Flemington will suit him better, and I didn't think I was that effusive about him. I thought that I kept saying, remember, he hasn't raced for a long time, but there was a lot of enthusiasm around him, and I didn't think he did perform up to what we expected.
Okay, so he has Barrier 5 there on the weekend. What would be a pass mark from your viewpoint, Bob?
Oh, if he was running home really well and in the placings, I would hope that could happen this weekend.
So from there, it's still very much Underwood, Caulfield Stakes, or now what is the Might and Power Stakes over there on Caulfield Guineas Day into the Cox Plate, all things being well?
If he ran well. If he doesn't run well, I'll have another think about everything. And as I said from the last race, it wasn't the way we were going to go, but things can change.
And what about the stablemate, the old boy Regal Power, who was terrific in the Lawrence? That was behind Mr. Brightside, and you saw close up Mr. Brightside obviously take out the Fiend when beating Inspirational Girl on the weekend just gone.
Yes, he performed quite well, I thought. Nothing brilliant or anything, but about to what was expected.
What's been the confidence levels this time around with him, knowing that he's got the Group 1 under the belt over here last year and goes back to Melbourne where we know he's had success? Is it a little bit more you know what you're going to get with him over there as opposed to a Western Empire?
Yes, he's fairly consistent. I think you'll find that he's the one that may be able to get over a bit longer than the rest of them because he's a very tough horse and he takes a lot more work than any other horse that we've had probably since Old Comrade, which was a long time ago.
He's been a marvellous horse, hasn't he, for yourself and Sandra, Regal Power, Bob, because he continues to front up each campaign and provided there are no issues, he continues to deliver.
Yes, he's a little bit underrated. I think the other ones get blown up and he just comes along and does the job. I think he's the highest stakes earner we've ever had, and he's definitely getting up there with probably the best we've ever had.
What would it take for him to get up alongside an Old Comrade who you do reference a lot?
Well, I suppose I always look at Group 1s. Old Comrade ran 4 Group 1s, and this fellow's heading towards the same way if he can pick up another one or two this time.
We spoke about those two horses, Western Empire and Regal Power, drawing favourably in the Group 1 Makybe Diva. Sad to say, in the Bobby Lewis quality down the straight, Graceful Girl, Barrier 2 and Stage Man, Barrier 4, I dare say you'd like them to be on the other side of the track.
Yes, I haven't seen the final field, and it looks like it'll be a fairly big field, so we're on the wrong side this time, but excuse me, I think we had our good barriers last week, and you can't get it all the time.
Can you talk us through the tricky path that you have to plot with Graceful Girl, knowing that she's got the Group 1 Winterbottom win, but at this time of the year, certainly mares races, it's not like there's a great deal around at weight for age, particularly like we do see in the autumn in Adelaide and also Queensland.
Yes, it's hard for the mares that have won a Group 1. All the mares races in Melbourne are set weights and penalties, except one or two right at the end of the spring over the longer distance. And the way the penalties work, it's worked on the black type race that you've won. And I found that if you've got a mare that might have won a Group 3 race, they're particularly well catered for, because like with Perfect Jewel, who we had over there, you can win a Group 3, being a Group 3 mare, and you stay as a Group 3 mare and you go into the next race at the same weight. So every race that Graceful Girl would go in the mares races, she's had to carry 60 kilos, and it's quite hard because there's always good new mares coming through at the lower weights.
Who's the pick of those two, Graceful Girl and Stage Man, on the weekend, Bob?
Oh, I would think Stage Man at the weights.
Yep. Would we be a chance to see him back here during the Pinnacles, he or her?
Well, I've been having a think about that, and I've talked to the powers about the flight and that sort of thing, and he could come back, I would say. It just depends on how much racing he gets over the spring. The next race that he has, this one and the next one, will tell us, and the way the flights are situated, you can get back here in time, even if you race through to the end of the Spring Carnival in time for the later ones. It's going to be a little bit tight to get back for a railway, but for the others, the flight's quite good.
You've got really strong Eastern States representation this year, and clearly 12 months ago it was very successful as well. You're very measured, you're a pragmatist. Do you still get excited this time of year with when you have good runners in good races over there on the East Coast?
Oh yeah, this is what we start and breed the horses for, to be able to race in these sort of races, and to get horses good enough to go there to be in the races is an achievement, and this year's the biggest contingent we've had there. I think we've got 7 going forward now into the spring racing, and we've had 6 there before. So this is the biggest lot that we've had over there, and hopefully we can get some sort of a result.
You've had some results over there previously, Group 1 last spring, a Group 1 the spring before, but there has been some bad luck along the way. So how much does that weigh on your mind when working out what horses to send there and how many to send there to Victoria and New South Wales, which you have had a little look at already this spring?
Well, first of all, the horses have to be good enough. They have to be winning our good races here, and I think the way that our business plan is set up now, it's not as difficult to have them over there racing for us.
How's Showmanship tracking along, Bob?
Yeah, he's good. Hopefully he'll run next week in the Sir Rupert Clarke Stakes, depending on what the track's like. If they don't get any rain in Melbourne, I'm afraid that Caulfield's just too hard for any horse really, but for him especially.
That performance up there at Randwick, he was really impressive. He gunned down the leaders. Did you see what you needed to see from him? Did that validate the opinion you have of this horse?
Yes, he's a very lightly raced horse, and hopefully his future's still in front of him. He's good performances.
Lightly raced, you mentioned there, Bob, and they were referring to him as an old horse and a veteran. That I don't know if that's the right way to describe Showmanship, given, as you say, he is lightly raced.
Yeah, one of the commentators over there called him the old horse, and then the rest of them carried it on and quite upset me because there was plenty of horses a lot older than him in the race. And if we wanted to have a look at the number of starts, he's a very young horse. I think it might have been his 10th start.
Yeah.
Some 2-year-olds have that many.
They do. Now, he's a horse I think when we got to see him in the flesh over here, we were all very excited. Could we see him back here as well, or is he a horse who is likely to race exclusively over there where there's often a little bit of give in the tracks?
Yes, he's one that I was tossing up with as to whether we'd even enter him in the Winterbottom, but I'm not sure when the entries are due, but we'll give that a bit of thought. But I would think that our tracks are probably a little bit too hard for him.
Have you had any interest from Everest slot holders? Because I think we are looking at horses this year to take on Nature Strip. We want to find a couple of sprinters to take on the big boy of not only sprinting in Australia but in the world.
Oh, I think you probably think you're a bit high there at this stage. He'd have to win a Group 1 in Melbourne, I think, before they'd be looking at him from that point of view.
Well, hopefully that is in the Sir Rupert Clarke Stakes. The horse we are talking about is Showmanship. So that's your Eastern States representation. What about locally? How strong a hand do you and Sandra have for the upcoming Pinnacles?
I don't think we've got a lot this year. Normally our horses coming through for the carnival here are from the autumn from the year before, and we had a very light autumn. A few things went wrong and things were a bit chaotic there for a while. So I don't think we've got a lot heading that way, but hopefully something can put their hand up, and we've got a few horses that are just starting to trial now that might come through as 3-year-olds, and a couple of 4-year-olds, and then the old horse Windstorm that I kept back from Melbourne.
Yep. Just
for this carnival, at least to have one of the older horses here.
The reason I asked you that question about your local hand, you have a horse by the name of Treasured Star who heads up the TABtouch market for the Railway Stakes. One of your more recent winners, a devastating winner of a Railway Stakes, was Inspirational Girl, who still is over there on the East Coast. A word on her as she builds after that Fian run, and then we can perhaps just reflect on the 3-year-old season of Treasured Star and what you think of her as a 4-year-old mare.
Yes, well, Inspirational Girl, I was happy with her run. It was about as good as we could have expected, and she'll have a next start hopefully in the Turnbull Stakes, and if she runs well in that, probably straight to the Caulfield Cup, which I'm pretty sure she'd get a run in on her rating, and I think she's passed all the clauses that get her into the Caulfield Cup, so we don't have to race her a lot to try and get her in there. So that's the way we'll be heading, and if everything goes right, she should be in that.
Treasured Star, what did you make of the trial most recently, and how's she tracking?
She's coming along well. On her rating, I don't think she'd get a run in the Railway, but we've had horses before that in that position. I can remember we couldn't get Regal Power in, and we had to run him in a race to get him in, and he didn't win the race, but he still got in. So hopefully she can show us something in the next couple of starts and come through and run in the Railway. Over the years we've had horses favourite for the Railway, and they didn't get a run because they didn't get in. So I'd suggest that the punters hold their money for a little while longer.
Bob, you've used the Asian bow. That's been the launching race for Galaxy Star. Regal Power, who didn't win the race, as you touched on, but Inspirational Girl did, and we saw Western Empire, how dominant he was in that en route to the Railway Stakes. Is that a D-Day for Treasured Star? Do you feel this long-term view on her and hopefully getting to a Railway Stakes?
Yes, I think that's the way that it'll go. If she gets in through that race, she's in. If she doesn't, and there's other races, and there's another new race been put on over 1400 as well that would suit her.
Will she trial again, Bob?
Yes, we'll probably trial. Yes, she would trial again. There's not a race for her for quite a while, and in fact, there's not many races for her at all. When you look through the calendar, there's not many highly rated races like 78s or 80, 85 pluses or anything like that on the calendar. So we have to wait for a race that'll suit her to start her off with.
Historically, Bob, you have gone looking for good pads with your racing? You're quite happy to send horses to Geraldton for their opening meeting. Is she likely to be held back for the start of Ascot, Treasured Star? Or could you get a run into her at Belmont prior to that?
No, I don't think she'd be running it. No, she wouldn't be running at Belmont. We'd just give her another trial and then come bring her back.
Yep.
Devoted, the Belmont Guineas winner, also the raconteur, and we saw how good he was first up as well throughout the winter. What's the gut feel telling you on the winter 3-year-old form of 2022 going into our carnival later this year?
Well, he's in the same boat as Treasured Star. I think they're both rated about the same, and same thing applies to him. He'd have to win something to get into a big handicap, and we'll find out whether he can do that or not in the next month.
Do you reflect on the accomplishments of 12 months ago, or not 12 months ago, Bob, but the success of the final TABtouch Masters? Or
yes,
do you look forward?
Well, it was nice to be able to have runners in those races, and particularly pleasing to be able to win them all. So I suppose, as the saying goes, we've ticked that box, and we'll see what we can do in the future.
You're not one to rest on your laurels, though, are you?
No, we've got another crop coming, and I always refer to it's a bit like the waves at Cottesloe Beach. They just keep coming when you're breeding them, and hopefully there's one or two good ones amongst them.
I think that's the way that we look at it as well, and we're very keen to see what this wave of 3-year-olds is going to bring, Bob. Have you got an idea on what 3-year-olds you think you might be able to start in nicer races as opposed to others, or is it very much a fact-finding mission over the next 4 to 5 weeks in terms of the WA Guineas picture?
Very much so. It's the next month will tell us where we are with these ones, and there's one there that we think goes quite well. It hasn't even trialled yet, and there's others that have just had their first or real trial, and so they're way behind all the 2-year-olds that have raced, and it looks like there's a very good crop of 2-year-olds coming through this year. So I'm a bit sceptical about what we can do in that area this year, but hopefully one of them puts their hand up.
What have the reports been like, though, from either the Breakers and or Michael or Adam?
There's a couple there that we're happy with it. Trialled the other day, and there's a couple there that we'll have to give another trial to, and we might even have to go to Belmont with them to get the trial into them. But we won't really know till they start to race, and there's not a lot of races for them either. I'm a bit, as you just mentioned, I'm always wary of what tracks I run them on, especially when they're new, and we seem to be running out of some good surfaces at the moment, so it's going to be hard to place them.
Bob Peters is with us in the studio this morning as we build up towards the Pinnacles. We've touched on the Mackay Diva Stakes Day representation as well at Flemington for this weekend. You touched on Michael Grantham there. It's a new relationship there that you've got, a trainer and owner relationship. What's life like with Michael Grantham?
Excuse me, Michael's no problem. He's listens, and he seems very keen and wants to learn, and we're getting on quite well.
How many horses do you and Sandra have with Michael, Bob? How do you split them up with Adam? Because we see Adam obviously works a big string himself, and he's clearly accommodating a fair few of yours.
They're about equal. Both of them have the same number, and that's the way we've kept it. Adam had quite a few of the younger ones as they were coming through, and he wanted to do that, and I explained to him that didn't necessarily mean that he would get them when they came back and that they would be split, and I think both of the boys accept the fact that the way it is at the moment and the way it will continue to be.
Michael is a hard worker. There's no doubt about that, between driving around and also his harness racing side of things, also the gallop side of things now that he's going into. Do you have to rein him in and just make sure that he's looking after himself as well, or is he just one of those that you can pour the work into?
No, I had a talk to him, and I asked him to tell me exactly how many he could take. I said, I don't want you to overexert things, and make sure you've got the right staff and everything to be able to come up with a number. And I left him with that for a few days, and he came back to me with the number, and we've sort of stuck around that from then on, and hopefully he stays at that for a while, and then maybe he'll want to grow a bit bigger, and that seems to happen with all trainers, so we'll see what happens.
It's a really big operation that yourself and Sandra run, Bob. How many foals are you expecting this season to hit the ground, either here or in the Hunter? I think most of your mares are over there. Would that be fair?
No, spread between the Hunter and Victoria and New Zealand, so around 40-something, I would think.
One of those mares, Galaxy Star, I think she has had a Piero filly. She has been covered by Piero, but she has been exported to New Zealand. Who's the stallion that is going to cover her this season, all things being equal?
She's going to Ocean Park.
Okay. The thought process with that, as I think a lot of our listeners are always very intrigued about how you go with your matings and the like.
Well, I think it's fairly obvious. We don't breed for the market, and so, we look for established stallions mainly, although sometimes I sort of look at new ones that are coming through that I think that suit our operation, and I move more towards what you might call in these days middle distance stallions, mile 2,000 metre horses, and there's not that many of them out there because the market demands speed and early 2-year-olds. That's where the money is, and so to find the stallions that suit us, I need to spread around a bit, and I've settled on a few of them, and Ocean Park's one of them, and Ifraj was one, but he doesn't come out any longer, and so some of the mares over there swapped over to Ocean Park. I've got a couple of shares in Ocean Park, and he's a Cox Plate winner. That's the sort of stallion that I look for.
One of the speed stallions who you have used has been I Am Invincible. How would you assess that association with your mares?
Not successful with my mares.
No. Is that because your mares are different, or are your mindset's different in regards to you looking at the middle distance / classic races?
Well, I think also the way that we bring our horses through and the races we aim for, they're not really the sort of races that the I'm Invincibles show up in, and maybe our tracks are a bit harder than over east where they get the softer tracks, and so far it hasn't been that good. We've had a couple that have done a good job for us, but nothing that's put their hand up as being as good as what the I'm Invincibles can be. For
sure. One of those who appears well above average is Secret Plan, though. How's he building for the summer upcoming, and what could potentially be his grand final?
Oh, who knows? Hopefully he can step up. He'd have to step up a little bit from where he is, but we'll see what happens with him and see what happens, as he comes along.
You've mentioned, Bob, on this program a couple of times previously about our revamped carnival, the Pinnacles, new 1,400 metre race. Now that we've had a couple of months for it to settle in and you're able to draw up what it looks like for each of your horses, the way that it has been done this year, how big of a fill-up is it for WA racing?
Well, I think the extra race being added makes it a lot a stronger carnival. I mean, as I just mentioned, if we don't make it, say, to the railway with a couple of good ones, there's another race that we can aim at and maybe get them a race in between that they can show up in and get another chance. So it's definitely strengthened the carnival quite a bit.
Would you like to have seen some money directed in the way of the Perth Cup, though, Bob? You are a traditionalist, and it's been a race which has been very good to you.
Well, the problem there is if I comment on that, they say he's only looking after himself. But
we had Chris Parnham last week, and he said, he was talking about the Perth Cup. He loves the Perth Cup. He's a young man. He's the next generation, and he is of the similar view to you, though.
Well, as I've said many times before, people in the industry don't understand the strength of the Perth Cup with the general public. As far as the general public are concerned, the Perth Cup is the biggest race in Western Australia. And yet it's just falling away from the point of view of stake money compared to the other races. And I did make the comment when all the new stake money was announced that I thought the two races that have been left behind were the Perth Cup and the Champion Fillies, when you consider that we've got a 1,200 metre 3-year-old race on that day that was worth $500,000 and the Champion Fillies was worth $200,000. The Champion Fillies is a Group 3. It's produced some of the best mares to ever race in here and in Australia at times, and it's sitting there with not even half the stake of another race. That I couldn't believe that one, but anyway.
Now, you're not going to say no to any of them. You've won a railway, multiple railways. Kingston Town's a race, now the Northerly, which has been kind to you, Perth Cup, clearly. If I was to put you on the spot and say, Bob Peters, what is the one race out of those three that you would like to win the most? Which one is it?
It's always been the railway, because that's, I think, more of a challenge. And it was one that we couldn't seem to conquer. I won it once a long time ago and then couldn't, and I sort of had to make a conscious decision. I had to work out how to do it, and I think we've sort of worked out how we go about it. Whether we can keep doing that, I don't know, but I think the best race here is the the
Northerly. Yes,
Northerly.
yes.
The Northerly's the best race we have, and I like winning that.
I don't think there'd be too many people that would disagree with that. Just on the railway stakes, I think you well and truly have worked it out. 4 in a row. What would 5 railway stakes in a row mean to yourself and Sandra?
It would be nice to be able to do it. I think it's going to be very hard to do it this year. It's going to be a little bit more competitive. Obviously, it's going to be more Eastern States competition, and I think we've only got one horse that's heading towards it that's qualified, so it's not going to be easy.
No, it's certainly not. Now, we had Chris in last week. We had Simon Miller the week before. So Amelia's Jewel has conquered the 2-year-olds that we've seen, and it's a pretty good crop of 2-year-olds that you have touched on as well. I guess the next challenge for her is the wave of yours and Sandra's horses, who we know go very well as 3-year-olds. Just what's your perspective on Amelia's Jewel and how good you think she is?
Oh, I think she shouldn't be here. She should be in Melbourne. She's should be looking at Group 1s. She's very, very good, and I'd be, very pleased if we could run a place behind her.
Wow, that's a big wrap on a filly that we're excited to see over here in Perth. Well, Bob, thank you very much for coming into the studio this morning. We do wish you all the very best as soon as this weekend in the Group 1 Makybe Diva Stakes. We know there'll be a lot of followers of Regal Power, Western Empire, Stage Man, Graceful Girl this weekend, Diggers.
Absolutely, Tim, and we could speak to Bob for another hour and wouldn't cover all the topics that we need to, and you only have to see the Retrovision text line, Bob, that we get with questions when we say we are speaking to you, people wanting to know about your horses, the progress of the horses, not just here, but also on the East Coast. The lure, the respect, I think, for the wider racing public have for the operation that you run it's universal. It really is. It's something that I think you should be very proud of. We're not telling you how to run your business, but I dare say each night you can be very satisfied with what you've built.
Yes, it has its ups and downs. It's going along quite well at the moment.
We hope there's a few more ups this weekend and going towards the Carnival as well, the Pinnacles. Thank you very much for coming in and giving us a bit of your time this morning.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Join Tim Walker and Digby Beacham on the Sports Daily each weekday morning from 5:30.